I'd like to welcome to the stage Matthew Betsey.
Thank you.
So Matthew, thank you for coming along today. We really appreciate it. I'm sure all the people here appreciate it as well. Now, before you joined the West Tigers, you were involved with Cricket Australia for a number of years. What was your role at Cricket Australia?
Yeah, so firstly, thanks for having me. I grew up playing rugby and cricket. Got to a point where I had to choose what I wanted to do more full-time, and I chose the cricket path, and was fortunate to play cricket and then turned into a sort of administrator. So my most recent role for about 10 years was heading up all the pathways and coaching for Cricket Australia. So that was basically looking at all the talent development and how, from a national perspective, we could actually drive the best talent. Cricket, like every sport, is in a bit of a war for talent. So how do you sort of make your sport the most interesting and exciting for boys and girls when they're 13, 14, 15 with so many opportunities, not just sport but entertainment, to choose your sport and then develop them through to, hopefully playing on the big stage. We've got the Ashes at the moment. I was fortunate enough to be in that sort of first wave where Travis Head and some of those players are starting to come through now, which is really exciting. And tonight you'll see Talon De Silva play tonight as well. So seeing that wave come through is really exciting.
So you decided to make the transition to rugby league. What was it about rugby league that you decided to pursue that as a career after spending so much time in cricket and being so heavily involved in cricket?
Yeah, it was a few things. The opportunity, and I know a lot of people talk about this, particularly with the West Tigers, but the opportunity sort of came up with the West Tigers, and I saw that as a bit of a challenge. And a lot of people had spoken about having a big junior base and how do you actually move that from being a big junior base and a really strong junior base through to actually on-field success in first grade at the NRL. So that for me was a big challenge and really exciting opportunity for me. So being able to take some of what I've learned in a different sport and bring it to rugby league was probably the most exciting opportunity. With a national sport like cricket, I've spent a lot of time on the road. So for probably the last 5 years of my role, I was based in Sydney. Head office was Melbourne. Our centre of excellence was Brisbane. And then I was in charge of our sort of global program. So we sort of ran coach education and talent development internationally. So I was on the road a lot as well. So there was a bit of a practicality around being at Concord or Campbelltown versus being on the road all the time.
Now, we've all heard, I think, a number of times the saying that we're a development club. Now, you're the head of our pathways. That's the most development part of our club. So what does it mean for West Tigers to be a development club?
Yeah, I think, and the term gets thrown around a lot. The one thing I'm really big on is that development and winning aren't mutually exclusive. So winning is a part of development. And we are a development club. And I think what people I think are referring to, particularly when they talk about a development club, is you've got a big junior base. So we've got a lot of our players sitting in our backyard, whether that's at Balmain or at West or our partnership through Group 6. We've got the players. We don't have to go like some other clubs, Melbourne, the Roosters, fly in, fly out players, go into other markets. You do have to do that for key positions. But if you do it right in your own backyard, then you don't have to do that. And that's what being a development club is. So when I came on board nearly 2 years ago now, I went around and spoke to a lot of people, and that was the biggest concern, I think, for most people that I spoke to, was that we weren't quite nailing it. The board had recognised at that time, which is why they brought on myself and Brett Kamali as well, that they hadn't invested the right resources in that space. So I think we're just starting to see, it's a long-term sort of project, if you like, but we're just starting to see the benefits of that now, and we have to be a little bit patient. So we started, we've got under 13, 14, 15 development squads. We've got mats and ball teams across Balmain and Wests. We've got the Group 6 partnership with the Andrew Johns and Laurie Daly teams. Those teams have been played finals for the first time in their history, or in a long time, in the last couple of years. So we're starting, but that's what we've got to do first and foremost. We've got to look after our local players, and then when we do recruit, we've got to be smart about our recruitment and add value to our local players in key positions. And I don't think we've got that right in the past. I don't think we've got it 100% right now, but it's a work in progress that we're sort of on that journey to making sure that we've got a pipeline of talent in both men's and women's game going forward.
What do you see as the biggest change since you've been at the club in that pathways area?
Certainly the investment. There's a lot of West Tigers get a lot of stuff in the media, and sometimes rightly so. But the one thing that I've noticed is that the board is very, very supportive, and the exec have been really supportive around resourcing pathways to make sure we do get it right. So that's the one thing that I've seen, and I notice, and I talk to other clubs, and I look at other systems. When I was at Cricket Australia, I looked at other sports at best practice and what other sports are doing. And West Tigers is right up there right now in terms of their level of investment, the people that they've got in and around the place. As I said, Brett Kamali on board, played 300 games, represented New South Wales, Australia, has coached in every position, I think, across the men's and women's game. Shannon Gallant doing a great job in the West region. We've got people like Paul Siren in Balmain. So that sort of investment, there's no reason for our players to pick up and go up to Parramatta or Manly or wherever else. So that's been the biggest change that I've seen in the last sort of 12 to 18 months.
So what do you feel is the biggest challenge for West Tigers in that development space?
I think the biggest challenge is transitioning our players from that SG ball level to NRL. That's the biggest challenge that we've got. We had a really successful Harold Matt side last year, and as I said, we're starting to see those players come through, and we've been fortunate to lock a lot of those players in long term. So across the next 3 or 4 years, our top 30 is sprinkled with that talent, and they're already locked in. So the exciting part is that they're locked in. The challenge for us now is putting the right programs, giving them the right playing opportunities, giving them the right development, supporting them off the field, all of those sorts of things, putting all of that around them to give them the best opportunity to play NRL. And not many people get the opportunity to play NRL, so it's a really tricky balance, and you need a little bit of luck along the way. But we need to give them every opportunity to actually be successful. And I think that's the biggest opportunity at the moment, is working through the Jersey Flag, New South Wales Cup system, and then getting them opportunities at NRL.
Now, we're a club that has kind of a split catchment area. What are the implications for that in your role in development? How does that affect pathways, and what are we doing to overcome that?
Look, I see it as a massive benefit and opportunity. So, as I said, we've got Balmain, Wests, and our Macarthur West Tigers through the Group 6. So, we've got 3 times as many players across those age groups as any other club. So we can give playing opportunities to players that other clubs just can't do. With that comes a massive investment. So that's probably the challenge, is how do we continually resource that to 3 times the level of any other club. And when you look at benchmarking across the NRL, we do spend a lot of money comparatively in the development space. But I see it as a massive opportunity. The way that the teams work together, I think we can be probably smarter. And we've seen a couple of opportunities where if a West team is littered with halves, then we give them opportunities at Balmain and vice versa. So I see those opportunities as something that we've got to use as our advantage, as a competitive advantage. Again, the challenge for that is once they get to Jersey Flag, we've got to sort of narrow that down into one squad, and the players know that, so they know that there's a halfback in SG Ball at Balmain and Wests, and there's probably one at Laurie Daly. They're smart. They know where they sit in the pecking order. So, how we then invest our time and resources and contracting into the right players to get them through Jersey Flag and New South Wales Cup is probably that challenge.
And I'd guess the Cubs initiative, where you have players from both pathway systems coming together, is really important in that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, one of the first things I heard when I first started was the Cubs group of maybe 2002, 2003, and how successful that was. They had a great crop of juniors, but the Cubs program is one thing that they all talked about. Before Benji was on our coaching staff, he was doing bits and pieces, and I'd see him connect with Shannon Gallant and others, and that was the thing that held them together. And they always talked about those opportunities. And then one went on a tour of South Africa to play, so it's really binding those players. And as a merger club, we need to do that, and we need to continue to provide those opportunities. So there's a part of it is the culture and getting that glue between the players that play at West and Balmain early, and that's happening at sort of 15, 16 years old. So our plan is by the time they play Jersey Flegg, they've all played with each other, they know each other, they socialise with each other. There's no issues when that gets to that level, and we can transition them better through Jersey Flegg and New South Wales Cup. And then this year, we've sort of expanded it. So we've got 3 tiers of the Cubs. Again, bringing them together, giving them access to expert coaches. We'll take them on the tour again. So our oldest Cubs will play in New Zealand again. That was a massive benefit to the program last year. We saw the upside of that. Justin Matamua played in that game. Tony Suka from Balmain played in that game, and it really highlighted the dichotomy of the two systems, but how we can use it to our benefit to come through and play together.
And it's not just about developing players either, it's about developing coaches in the junior systems as well. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Yeah,
absolutely. And part of my role at Cricket Australia was specifically focused on that. So you get the best people around your players, and you give them that opportunity. And so we're constantly looking at coaches that we can come into our system, give them opportunities as assistants, look at the opportunities as head coaches, and then provide the support around them. So as I said, Paul Siren and Shannon Gallant do a wonderful job at Western Balmain, but we've also got Brett Kamali, who's had all those roles, and so he's out at training all of the time. We've put some processes in place, so without going into too much detail, all of the coaches across all of those teams submit their training plans in. Brett will go through those. He'll pick up the phone and talk to the coaches, and basically just make sure that their plan is working on the outcomes that they're trying to achieve that week. And that way we're not micromanaging. We're giving them the freedom to develop their own plans and develop their own style, but we're just making sure that they're on track for what they want to achieve. And there's been a few cases where we've watched the junior rep games of that week, and the coach will come to us and say, "This is my training plan for this week," and it doesn't match up the areas that they need to focus on. So that's a conversation. Sometimes there's some tough conversations, and then we just make sure that we're on track for that following week. Doesn't happen perfectly, but there's a process in place to actually help support them. And if they're on track and if they're going well, most of the time that's a really smooth process. But again, then Noddy will actually go out, or Shannon or Paul will go out, watch the session to make sure that what's in their training session plan is being delivered, that the outcomes are actually being achieved. So again, long term, what we hope is that turns into long-term NRL success, because the players have come through that system. It's a process that the NRL teams do and elite teams do. So hopefully by the time they get to that point, it's just second nature to them as coaches, but also the players they know exactly what they need and what's expected.
So we had an announcement earlier in the year that there's going to be a Centre of Excellence, academy built out at Campbelltown. What will that provide to the club, and what are the benefits you see from that?
Yeah, massive opportunity. We fought pretty hard to get that funding, and obviously the political side of it with governments changing over didn't sort of come about as quickly as what we would like. But having I think it's going to be called a Centre for Sport and Health. We've got an MOU with Western Sydney University, so they'll be housed there as well. The Southwest Academy of Sport will be housed out of there. And we'll have our junior programs and maybe even our women's programs running out of here. So to have that opportunity where, as I said, players can come, don't have to leave their homes, don't have to leave their schools, can get access to elite facilities here in Campbelltown, I think is going to be a massive opportunity. And I think they've got to build it pretty quickly to use the funding. So I think we're looking at March 26 for that to be ready.
Excellent. So you mentioned the women's game very quickly just then. The West Tigers are about to embark on their inaugural NRLW season. You've been quite heavily involved in the women's game at the club. What is the importance of us having an NRLW side?
Yeah, the importance is, I think it's massive for a club, for any club, but for the West Tigers to have opportunities at the elite level for boys and males and females, but to be role models for boys and girls growing up. I think it's a massive opportunity, and particularly for the big catchment that we've got in the West region. As I said, that war for talent, 13, 14, 15-year-old boys and girls, can and should be growing up, aspiring to play NRL or NRLW, and that's what that NRLW side gives us. We've purposefully gone out and contracted mostly local players, and been really loyal to the players that have paved the way over the last 2 or 3 years in our women's program. And we had that wonderful game here last year where we won the premiership. So that was all part of sort of building towards the NRLW, and we think we will have a really strong side. We've added some experience and some leadership which we think we needed, particularly up middle. But yeah, we're really excited. I think we're certainly the three things that we focused on as part of our vision. One was to win a premiership. So first and foremost, we're here to win. We're not here to just participate and say how good is it to be on TV. We're here to win, and the players know that. The second thing is we want to fill a stadium. So that's around all the commercial side of things, and we've got a massive opportunity round 9, 14th of September. I'm sure you've all got it in your diaries, but a Thursday night here during finals time in September, great opportunity for us to showcase what we've got. We'll play the Knights, who are the reigning premiers. It'll be on free-to-air TV, primetime slot on a Thursday night. Hopefully, we're in a shot for the finals, and we get heaps of people here to play the game, to watch the game. And then we want to have professional athletes. So the other side, the third thing that we focused on is we want to make sure that these girls, ladies coming through have all the resources that they need to become professional athletes. They're not paid professionally, but their mindset and everything that they do and everything they have should be professional. And those three things are sort of intertwined. They all work together to hopefully give us a really successful inaugural year, but a long-term success.
Okay, so we've got Talon De Silva making his debut tonight. Now, this is a guy who's progressed so quickly. 8 weeks ago, he was playing SG ball. He's played a couple of games of flag, a game and a little bit of cup. That must be a proud moment for you and a proud moment for the pathway system to see a guy so young and with so much talent making his debut tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's great for all of West Tigers. As we know, it takes a village to raise a child, and there's been so many people that would have been involved in Talon's development over a long period of time. From his local club here, and I know that a lot of them will be out here to support tonight. His rep coaches, West Tigers coaches, everyone, his school coaches. So everyone's played a role in developing him. And we're really fortunate, I think, to be able to provide him that opportunity. I think it's great that we're starting to see that. I think we'll see a lot more of it in the coming years. And he has progressed really quickly. I don't think anyone's wildest dreams, we probably would have expected Appy to play Origin and maybe miss a game here or there, but to get some injuries and then have Talon have an opportunity to play, I think is massive. And we all hope he goes really well, but it has been rushed. So I hope everyone's got a bit of patience that we stick with him as well, because it's a fast rise, but it's a tough game, and he's certainly a player of our future. So. It's really exciting for him. I'm really hopeful that all the West Tigers fans and supporters are really proud of that. Him sort of being that first wave of what could be a really prosperous future.
The rise has been that quick that I'm sure there's a number of fans and even fans here tonight who haven't seen him play yet because a lot of it's not televised and he's come through really quickly.
Yep.
What do you think he has to offer the side tonight?
Look, like all number nines, he's got a really good passing game and he's got a good running game. So when you've got those two things as a 9, similar to, I'm not comparing him to Appy, but Appy's got those skills as well. If you can jump out a 9 and you've got a good passing game and a good running game, you've already got the opposition second guessing. So that's what he's shown. More recently, I think he's scored in every game he's played this year, maybe except the cup game that he only had about 10 or 12 minutes, and I think he got held up over the line as well. So he's a try scorer, which means he clearly puts the opposition in doubt as to what he's going to do. And if you've got good service, then it's going to get the ball to the halves and the ball players as they need it. So I think that's really exciting. I think he'll be awesome. How they use him tonight, I'm not exactly sure. But yeah, it's a massive opportunity for him, and I think it'd be really exciting. And he's really looking forward to it.
Now, just going back to the pathways for a moment, what do you see as the future? What's the next development for the pathways? How do we keep it strong? How do we improve it?
It's a good question. I think we've got to be patient. I think there's enough of the foundations that are being set now to really drive that over the next probably 5 years. As I said, from now till 2027, we've really got the players in key positions as juniors coming through. We've made some changes in the recruitment space, which, as long as that philosophy aligns with what we're doing as a development club to make sure that we're adding value in key positions, I think that can really work. But I think it's more about patience at the moment. As we've seen, we've got some really good people, we've got some really good programs, we've got Cubs and Raw programs. We're connecting Wests and Balmain. I think we're representing West Tigers really, really well. We're providing the right playing opportunities. The club's resourcing it really well. So I think there's a lot that's in place, but it's just the foundations, and we just need to be patient and then align our recruitment philosophy to that. And if we can align that recruitment philosophy to it, like we've seen even this year, success isn't that far away.
Okay, I'll open it up for a few questions from the floor. So if anyone has a question, just raise your hands, and Troy has the microphone over there. I think Troy may have a question first.
I'm on my way. Yes, your name? Anne. Okay, Anne, would you like to ask a question to Matt?
Yeah. I just want to know, do they know where the Centre of Excellence is going to be built out here yet?
Yeah, so the northern end of the ground will be transformed. So where the hill is at the moment on that northern end, the Centre of Excellence will be 3 stories built into sort of the back of the hill. There'll be seating where the hill is, corporate space at the top, and then out the back, which is going out to where the athletics and tennis centre is, that's where the entry will be.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Anne. Matt, I've got a question if you don't mind. You were talking about the young players coming through the pathways being contracted. I've always been curious, where is that money like under a cap? Is there a limit to how much you can pay those young players coming through the pathways? Or is it just go do your best sort of thing?
Free for all.
Sorry, that?
Yeah, within reason, it is a free-for-all at a New South Wales Rugby League level,
Okay.
so at a pathways level. So at one end, you can't contract anyone that's not turned 15. So once they turn 15, you can contract players. And then once they get to the NRL, that's any component of their contract which is NRL related is obviously cap related then.
Okay.
But between that, it's fairly well a free-for-all.
So it would be very competitive, I should imagine, with other clubs?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So which is part of our challenge. So
Yep.
The recruitment clubs know that.
Yep.
And they also know that we're scared of losing our local juniors. So sometimes in a competitive market, the price goes up because other clubs know that.
Okay. And you wouldn't know how many of these young players coming through the pathways we have under contract now? Is there a number?
So we'd have 150 contracted players across all of our programs.
Wow.
So all of them that play, particularly if they're over 18, they need to have a contract.
Okay.
So they could be $0 value contracts, but we would sort of provide medical coverage and those sorts of things. So that's probably one end of the spectrum.
Yep.
And then you've got some of the players that we've talked about in that Harold Matt's group that came through. So the top 4 or 5 players from that group have got 3, 4, 5 year contracts locked in long term.
Okay. Yep.
And year 3, maybe year 2, 3, 4, 5 have an NRL component.
Okay.
So
Yep.
that's all part of that sort of negotiation about how you lock in your players long term in the key positions.
Yeah. So by year 3, 4, or 5 of those long-term contracts for these young guys, that NRL component would come under our cap. Is that right?
Correct. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Oh, so that'd be the case now. There's some of that money. Oh no. Okay. It's
No,
not.
in
Year
that
3, 4,
year.
5.
So if
No, I understand. Yeah.
yeah, if Talon's got a 5-year contract, and I'm not saying that he does, but I don't know the exact term, but he's got a long-term contract, and in 2027 there's X value for him playing NRL. That would be in the contract in that year, in the cap in that year.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, there'd be a bit of work around that. Yep. Yes. Let's hold on for a second. By the way, Gary, a great interview, by the way. He said he was going to wing it tonight. But well done, Gary. There you go.
And I love your scarf, Matthew. My name's Robert. My concern is about the level of coordination there is between the recruitment side of things and you guys. We have a new recruitment officer. We don't know much about him. We have a very good pathways program, as we can see. The question is, what is the level of liaison and coordination between pathways and the recruitment system to make sure that everyone's on the same page? Is Tim Sheen's involved at all, and that type of issue?
Yeah, thanks. And that is our challenge. As I said, we've changed recruitment managers. What I can guarantee is that there's a lot of discussion, a lot of liaison between all of the people involved, from Tim in a more short-term NRL perspective. Obviously, Benji's also involved in those discussions because they're probably going to be his players in years 3, 4 and 5 of that 5-year plan at an NRL level. Myself, Paul Searon and Shannon Gallant, and now Scott Fulton, we're in regular dialogue. I would have spent 3 hours with Scott Fulton the other day, door shut, very robust discussions on exactly this, just to making sure that we're aligned with our recruitment philosophy and our development philosophy. As I said, they're not mutually exclusive, and if we do both well, the club will benefit. So we're having those conversations and we're in constant contact. Doesn't always work. There's a whole heap of factors at play that go in behind that. But yeah, we're certainly I'm acutely aware that that's a challenge for us, and we need to be on top of it.
Okay, we'll take one more question and then we better let Matthew go because he's got to get back over to the stadium.
Okay.
Yeah, apologies for that. I've got the New South Wales combined high school teams being presented to the crowd in about 15 minutes. So,
Last question.
G'day, mate. Just a quick one. So just in relation to the women's game, obviously they got the Tasha Gale. Is there something plans in relation to like a Harold Matts SG competition kind of thing that links with the NRL into the men's game as well for growth everywhere?
Yeah, absolutely. So, and we're a little bit reliant on New South Wales Rugby League providing the competitions that our female players can play in. But I think next year we'll have a Lisa Fiola competition, which will be an under-17 competition. This year they played that as a city and a country competition. So we were fortunate to play in the city competition as West Tigers, and then in the country competition through our Group 6 partnership as well. So we had 40 players with opportunities at that level. The Tasha Gale is under-19s, and then the Harvey Norman side will be obviously the next step up leading into NRLW. So those competitions will have teams in, so we've got a genuine pathway all the way through. We're also running that Raw program, which is the equivalent of the Cubs program we talked about. So in between each of those age groups, and that's running at the moment, we're providing opportunities for players to prepare for In the next 2 years, Lisa Fiola. Next year, Tasha Gale. Next year, Harvey Norman. So we've, Brett Camorley, and a number of our coaches are already working with those players, focusing on what they need for next year. So, again, we've got the NRL team and that NRLW team, and that will be the pinnacle and what people will see on TV. But the club has really focused on its pathways to make sure we've got that sort of pipeline of talent coming through.
And that was a big part of the application to get the NRLW side, was the completion of that pathway from the junior level right through to the NRLW.
Yeah, absolutely. I think people at NRL probably, when they looked at expansion, they probably had Canberra and North Queensland in their sights because of geography. And they went from 6 teams to 10 teams because I think, the Sharks and probably West Tigers have got big junior participation pathways, and that was certainly one of the things that we wanted to make sure that they were fully aware of. We've got a lot of people in this area that we need to engage as rugby league players and fans, and we've got lots of players at the moment, so we need to keep developing them to come through. So it was a big part of our application.
Thank you for your time, Matthew. Can everyone give Matthew a round of applause?
Thank you.
I'll let you go so you can get back over to the ground, but thanks for your time, mate.
No worries at all.